When most people think about death row, they think of Suge Knight. It was once believed that Suge Knight alone was responsible for bringing some of rap's biggest superstars together and generating over $400 million in sales. But in the years since the label's downfall, it's been revealed that there was another man behind the infamous death row, a man they call Michael Harry O. Harris. While Knight is often credited with the rise of the label, Harris's significant financial backing played a crucial role in its early success. Many don't realize that death row's rise to prominence wouldn't have been possible without Harris' initial investment and strategic vision. His involvement was not only financial, but he also helped shape the foundation of the label during its formative years. However, due to his imprisonment, Harris' contributions were largely overshadowed, and his role in the label's creation remained a well-guarded secret for many years. Behind bars, Harris continued to keep tabs on the label's progress, even though his name was not on any official documents. His story highlights how business acumen, opportunity, and ambition came together to create one of the most notorious and successful labels in music history. Michael Harris was born on September 20th, 1961, and grew up on 46th Street in the heart of South Central Los Angeles. The neighborhood was tough, plagued by poverty, violence, and the growing influence of street gangs. Raised by a single mother, who worked tirelessly at 2 jobs to provide for him, Harris didn't have an easy childhood, but he was determined to make something of himself. His mother did her best to give him a stable environment despite the challenges they faced, and Harris excelled in school. He was known for being intelligent and a quick learner, standing out in the classroom from an early age. During his elementary and junior high years, Harris' passion for music became evident when he joined the school band, where he played piano, trombone, and drums. His love for the arts continued into high school, where he further developed his musical abilities and even discovered a budding interest in acting. At Los Angeles Community College, Harris pursued his academic interests and started to focus on scriptwriting and acting, taking part in various school plays. It was during these formative years that he discovered his knack for business. His entrepreneurial spirit began to show when he launched his first venture, a small music studio called Jingle Factory, which specialized in creating radio commercials for local businesses. Harris wasn't just focused on surviving in the tough environment of South Central Los Angeles. He was thinking beyond his circumstances. As a young man, he was already showing that he had the mindset of a future mogul. His ability to pivot between creative and business endeavors laid the foundation for the diverse and ambitious career he would later build. His early exposure to business, mixed with the street knowledge of his environment, would be key factors that helped him navigate both the legitimate and illegal aspects of his life. Harris' early years were defined by a unique blend of ambition, intelligence, and creativity, setting the stage for the drastic decisions he would later make, which would alter the course of his life. While many of his peers were falling into the traps of gang life, Harris was determined to carve a path that would allow him to transcend his environment. If you're enjoying this video, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe button. In 1987, at the age of 26, Michael Harris' life took a dramatic turn. After years of building his drug empire, Harris was arrested and charged with kidnapping and conspiracy to commit murder. The charges stemmed from a failed drug deal that resulted in violence and the kidnapping of a rival dealer. This marked the end of his reign as a major player in the Los Angeles drug trade. Despite his success and the vast fortune he had accumulated, Harris' criminal activities were beginning to catch up with him. He was arrested and quickly became the target of a massive prosecution. In a world where loyalty was often in short supply, his legal troubles were further compounded by betrayal and the efforts of law enforcement to take down anyone connected to the larger drug network. Harris was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison, a sentence that shocked both his business associates and family. The conviction stripped him of not only his freedom, but also his assets. The feds seized his lavish $1.1 million hilltop mansion in Los Angeles, along with multiple properties, 5 luxury cars, and millions of dollars worth of investments. In total, the seizure amounted to more than $3 million, a staggering blow for someone who had once controlled a multi-million-dollar drug empire. At the time, it seemed as though his future was bleak. The authorities sent a message to others in the criminal world. No one was too powerful to avoid the law. Harris was left with little to his name, and his once promising business empire appeared to be unraveling. Despite the overwhelming odds, Harris didn't give up. Determined to fight his case and regain his freedom, he hired a prominent California attorney, David Kenner, to oversee his appeal. Kenner, who would later play a critical role in the establishment of Death Row Records, worked tirelessly on Harris' behalf. He was part of the legal team that pushed for a possible reduction in Harris' sentence or an early release on probation. But even as Harris began to fight for his freedom, he continued to explore ways to stay connected to the business world and expand his influence, albeit from behind bars. He knew that despite being incarcerated, he still had the resources and intellect to keep his entrepreneurial vision alive. Despite being behind bars, Michael Harris' connection to the creation of Death Row Records was instrumental in the label's early success. After his conviction, Harris, who had already made a name for himself as a savvy businessman, saw the potential in Suge Knight's fledgling record label and decided to get involved. In 1991, Harris reached out to his attorney, David Kenner, with the idea of investing in Death Row Records. Harris had heard about Knight's efforts to push the label forward, but Knight lacked the capital necessary to make it a major player in the music industry. That's where Harris stepped in. In exchange for a 50% stake in the company, Harris agreed to provide Knight with a significant financial investment, totaling $1.5 million. This deal was made possible through a multimedia company Harris set up called Godfather Entertainment, which was structured as the parent company of Death Row. However, because California law prohibited incarcerated individuals from directly managing businesses, Harris became a silent partner, allowing Suge Knight to put his name on all of Death Row's official documentation. The two forged a deal that allowed Knight to operate the label, while Harris' wife, Lydia Harris, took on the role of managing Godfather Entertainment. Though Harris was not able to publicly claim ownership, his initial investment was a crucial factor in Death Row's rise to prominence. This partnership set the stage for the launch of the label's first major albums, including Dr. Dre's The Chronic and Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style. Harris was not just a passive investor, he was an integral part of the decision-making behind the scenes. Even from prison, his business acumen, knowledge of the industry, and connections played a major role in setting Death Row on the path to success. Over time, however, tensions began to build between Harris and Knight as they drifted apart due to financial and personal disputes. Knight's increasingly reckless behavior and involvement with gangs began to worry Harris, who was trying to distance himself from the negative aspects of the business. Despite this, Harris' initial contributions to the label's funding and structure can never be denied, and his involvement remains a key chapter in the rise of Death Row Records. As Death Row grew, Harris' role evolved, but the legacy of his early investment was undeniable. His story, though often overshadowed by the larger-than-life figures like Suge Knight, would later emerge as a vital part of the label's history. In the end, Harris' business savvy was a catalyst for Death Row's initial explosion into the mainstream, proving that his vision extended far beyond his time on the streets or in prison. As Death Row Records grew into a multi-million-dollar powerhouse, the relationship between Michael Harris and Suge Knight began to deteriorate. Despite Harris' crucial financial contributions, he and his wife, Lydia, started noticing that their involvement and investment were not being acknowledged in the way they had expected. Although they had poured $1.5 million into the label, neither Harris nor Lydia saw any royalties or profits from Death Row's rapidly growing success. As the label began churning out massive hits from artists like Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg, and Tupac, Harris and his wife were left on the outside looking in. Their once close relationship with Knight started to fracture, with Harris increasingly feeling sidelined in the business decisions that were being made without his input. Further complicating the situation, Harris' attorney, David Kenner, who had initially helped orchestrate the deal, became more focused on representing Knight, leaving Harris' interests neglected. Harris, who had trusted Kenner to manage his legal affairs, soon realized that Kenner was more invested in Knight's business than in securing Harris' rightful share of the Death Row profits. This created significant tension between all parties involved. Over time, The calls and communication between Harris and Knight became sparse, and the original bond they had formed began to disintegrate. Knight's growing ties to gang culture and his erratic behavior also caused Harris to distance himself from the label, further deepening the rift. In 2002, Lydia Harris filed a civil lawsuit against Death Row, claiming millions in unpaid royalties. The court ruled in her favor, awarding her $107 million, confirming that she had co-founded Death Row Records with a $1.5 million seed money from her husband, Michael Harris. By 2006, Death Row Records filed for bankruptcy, and the label was auctioned off for $24 million. However, neither Harris nor his wife received the full amount owed to them. It was reported that they only received $1 million from the lawsuit, and it was expected that they would never see the rest of the money owed. After the sensationalized trial between Harris and Death Row Records ended, the news coverage quieted down, and Harris proceeded to finish out the rest of his prison sentence. However, in 2019, Harris was back in the news when it was announced that, after 31 years behind bars, Michael Harris, the co-founder of Death Row Records, was coming home. As media outlets flooded the internet with headlines about his release, many failed to acknowledge the fact that he had spent 28 years in prison and had entered into that infamous agreement with Suge Knight. Harris, in his own words, is now a changed man. Harris recognizes the fact that his experience with Death Row has made him somewhat of a celebrity, and that he now has the opportunity to use his platform to give back. He hopes to take his wisdom back into the streets to help heal broken communities. Only time will tell what Harris will do in his next chapter of life, but there's no question that wherever he goes, he will always be known as Michael Harry O. Harris, the man behind Death Row Records. Don't forget to check out the video above for more videos on Underworld Icons.